Welcome to Close the Gap, where we thoughtfully engage with CEOs and top industry leaders all working to close the female equity gap in the C-suite and boardroom. Christine Gannon, the CEO of Brightworks Consulting, and Dr. Antoinette Farmer-Thompson, a senior leader with Arizona State University, host insightful conversations responsible for moving the needle for female participation in the C-suite.
Welcome to Close the Gap. We are thrilled and honored this morning to have Dena Faccio with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dena is the Senior Vice President of Compensation, Benefits, HR Resolution, and Workforce Analytics at VOYA Financial. And for those of you who don't know, VOYA is a Manhattan-based Fortune 500 financial services company whose mission is retirement readiness for all Americans. Dena is responsible for the company's executive and broad-based compensation strategy and long-term incentive plans, which include health, welfare, and retirement benefit strategies, employee relations, HR analytics, and insights. I'm just wondering when you sleep. That's a whole lot. Prior to joining VOYA, Dena spent a year as the head of compensation for Forest Laboratories, a mid-sized global pharmaceutical company. And prior to that, Dena spent 12 years at PricewaterhouseCoopers global HR solutions practice in retirement and compensation consulting. Dena earned her Bachelor's of Science from Towson University, concentrated in actuarial science. And she has an MBA from New York University, Leonard and Stern School of Business. On a personal note, Dena is married and she has two children, ages 10 and 9. And in her free time, Dena enjoys traveling, boating, golfing, and giving back to the community. So Dena, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to speak with you today.
So I'm exhausted, Christine.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not doing enough, but go ahead.
Me either. So Dena, I thought we would start our conversation off talking a little bit about your company, VOYA, because wow, super impressive when I look at the awards and recognition. And I want to share a little bit of that with our listeners and ask you what the intentionality was behind it. How did that come together? So some of the awards and recognition include VOYA is number 353 on the Fortune 500 list. In 2020, named the world's most ethical company for the 7th consecutive year. VOYA was included in the 2020 Bloomberg Gender Equity Index for the 3rd consecutive year. Named as one of the best places to work for LGBT equality for 15 consecutive years in the 2020 Human Rights Campaign Foundation. VOYA was included in the 2019 Disability Equality Index for the 2nd consecutive year. And in 2019, named one of the 100 best companies by Working Mother magazine. And lastly, but the list goes on, honestly, certified as a 2019 Great Place to Work for the 4th consecutive year. So all of that doesn't just happen. Talk to us a little bit about your experience in terms of that's intentional. How did that happen?
That's right. That's exactly where I was going to start. So that list, it grows each year, and we're really proud of that, but it's very intentional. We work really hard to be distinguished and to be recognized in the marketplace and internally with our own folks, because we measure that as well. So, how do companies get there? Well, you have to have goals and you have to set action plans and you have to execute with precision against them. And, so broadly speaking around diversity, we set out to improve our diversity numbers around women and people of color, and in particular in our leadership roles. And we didn't just talk about it. We actually created plans. We made it part of our goal to increase our numbers. And like most companies know, that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen within a year or two. It's a long-term plan with commitment and buy-in from the top on down. So that starts with our board of directors, and it continues with our executive committee, and cascades through our senior managers and really through all of our management teams. So it's about having the vision and having the buy-in at the top, and then executing against those visions and those plans, and not stopping when you hit a bump in the road or you have a setback. It's perseverance as well.
So let me imagine that I am a female in VOYA, and I am probably at the management level, trying to get to that next level, trying to get to the vice president level. And of course, the research indicates that as the ladder goes up, it narrows for women and widens for men. So what does succession planning or preparing someone like myself to get to that next level, what does that look like in VOYA that may be different?
Sure. So VOYA does tremendous work around performance management and succession planning and talent review. This is part of our annual process. We assess talent this time of year, actually, mid-year, each and every year. And we identify our top performers. That's done through an individual's manager. So communication with your manager, about your aspirations, having a voice and being your own representative is important, but also demonstrating your abilities. So having high performance, having signature project work that gets you exposure is certainly helpful, but demonstrated and consistent high performance is sort of an input into that equation, if you will, right? Because we have a merit-based system and it's a performance-based system. And so you have to have demonstrated your capabilities and your technical abilities in order to be promoted into that next level. There also needs to be a business need. Our promotions are not just time or tenure-based. There's a business need and a case for a bigger, to move into a bigger role. And there needs to be an opening. Not to say that it can't be created, but in most cases, there's an opportunity to seek out. And your open and honest communication with your manager about what your aspirations are and the timing for that aspiration. I see myself, doing this in the next 1 or 2 years, or over the next 3 to 5 years, I want to actually change gears and get involved in this part of the business. I want to move out of my role into a different part of the company. That type of redeployment and mobility is very much encouraged and supported because, we consider our talent and our future leadership to be portable and to be I'll say, redeployable across any of our businesses and functions. And we understand you may not have the technical depth, but we can train you for that. It's having the passion and the drive to want to bring your best self to work every day.
Well, if I may, Christine, just want to throw out something. The word intentional sticks out to me. And the fact that HR has analytics involved or included in its portfolio, that's critical. I'm on the analytics side too, and so have an appreciation for that work. Can you talk a little bit about how that fits into your HR work that you do?
Sure. So since you're in that space, if you don't measure it, it won't matter. And that doesn't mean you should measure everything, but we need to figure out what is your strategy around HR metrics, what's important. So for example, if you want to make progress on your D&I strategy, okay, so take a measurement of where you are, figure out what's a competitive and compelling benchmark, and then measure your progress against yourself and the benchmark over time. And so part of my past included time at PwC, which Christine, you mentioned, and part of my time there was spent with the Saratoga Institute, which is a well-known shop around HR metrics and benchmarking. And so I cut my teeth there with respect to what's important to measure, how to measure it, and how to compare your measurement to others, and then where to spend your time resolving and making progress against what your areas of development are. And so that serves me really well. I have a strong team who has some depth in both reporting and analytics, but beyond the numbers, right? Because I could produce a dashboard for you. It's the insight and then the predictive analytics that really differentiates where we are and where we want to go. So it's taking the data and then telling the story through the insights that I think is so important, because I could tell you over and over again each quarter and each year what our measurements are. But, you have to dig a little deeper below the surface to find the meaning behind it. And then use that in your business plan and in your strategy to get the results that you want, and ultimately, as a public company, to drive that shareholder value.
So I'm gonna ask the next question and take a little bit of a pivot, Dena, in terms of your personal journey and your career history, because we have both men and women that listen to our podcast, but a majority of women are looking for insights and stories on how did you get to the executive role? I mean, you've had an amazing career. So share some insights about your journey.
Sure. So I would say underpinning it all is a lot of hard work, is a lot of long days and long weeks and weekends, and really putting in the time and, with a focus on quality. So in other words, nobody handed it to me, and don't expect to be handed opportunities. Your work really needs to be merit-based, and it needs to stand on its own. And once you establish yourself and you become someone who's sought after for whatever it is you do, that's important in terms of building your brand. So personal brand is extremely important. And think about the things you want to be known for, right? Accuracy, quality, responsiveness, trust, and the things you don't want to be known for, and stay away from those things, because let me tell you, it's a lot harder to dig out and to erase a label, a negative label, than it is to establish the positive one. So, I always tell folks, bring your A game, stay focused, avoid any pitfalls that would do any damage to your personal brand. So I think, one, you have to, your work needs to stand on its own. Two, you need to speak up for yourself. You need to be your own advocate. Don't expect, it will happen, and it does happen, but that's not a given. You need to have a voice about what you like about your role, what you like about your manager, what you like about your company, and what you would like to see change, and then be part of the change. So don't expect anyone to read your mind or to set your own career path, whether that's a ladder or a lattice or whatever form it takes. You are responsible for defining that. So, those are two very important pieces of my past and my present and future, is having established a brand that I'm proud of and that I work very hard to keep where it is. And I have a voice. I'm certain that if I'm in the driver's seat of my own career and my future, that it's going to go in the right places. Now, in addition, I would layer on that mentorship is so important. You need to have a champion. You need to have a mentor who's separate and apart from your day-to-day manager, and even perhaps separate and apart from your business and function in your everyday. Someone who's sort of an independent third party with a point of view that's different than yours and different from the folks that you're constantly around. So for example, for me, at VOYA, Nan Ferrara has played a very important role in mentoring and helping me develop. And one of the things we do together, which I encourage many women to do, is we play golf together. We spend time on the golf course, and I learned from her about VOYA and also she can outdrive me any day of the week. So I like the competition there. But it's something that I don't think enough women do. And we think that somehow men need to be involved in the golf as well, but it's not a must. And so, look for opportunities to find a mentor, someone who you might have things in common with, where getting together feels natural and fluid, and then take advantage of it. And honestly, our relationship works in both directions. We share. It's a two-way street between us. Sometimes I'm asking her for advice. Sometimes she's asking me for advice. But I know that I can always count on her to give me an honest, independent point of view on, something that I might be contemplating or chewing on, or sort of a challenge that I'm facing, or, same thing for her. So I think it's important to have, your brand. You need to have a voice, and you need to have a mentor or a champion who's going to help you, reset when you need it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I want to go back to something you mentioned, and that was predictive analytics and algorithms. So it's funny you say that. As part of our research, this constitutional grit piece, what we discovered a number of things. What we did was we just pulled together all of the articles that had been written, and we looked at everything together so that we could have a broader picture rather than reading this one and this one. So a meta-analysis. And in doing all of that, discovered a number of things. The World Economic Council said it would be about 200 years before women would have equity in the United States, right? And when I think about what you said, predictive analytics and how we might be able to accelerate that, what are some things that you think companies can do, 2 or 3 things that could accelerate, that could proliferate the equity that needs to happen more quickly? Because, of course, research has proven time and time again, when women are in the senior levels like yourself and your mentor, there's more innovation and there's greater profitability. So why wouldn't we do it? So just respond to any and all of that.
That's a lot. And I've seen that statistic before. And, that's not in any of our lifetimes, and not even any of our cumulative lifetimes, I think. And it's sad. But help is on the way. So, there are organizations out there like the 30% Club, which, by the way, I wish it was called the 50% Club, because why stop at 30? Right? But I know you have to start somewhere. There are organizations like that whose sole mission is to increase the number of women in board seats and in executive committees. And so I encourage all organizations, not just Fortune 500 companies, but to get involved with organizations like that. And that doesn't mean just pairing up your high potential females. It means your executives need to serve as mentors for high performing and high potential females at other executives, so that they have that exposure and that perspective. So one, certainly those organizations, that external exposure is very helpful. 2, you have to have the diversity has to come from the top. So your board needs to be reflective of what your workforce and really what your client base is. And so if your board is not diverse, then any message that they send really isn't, doesn't have that backing. And so it's important to have the diversity at the very top and then let it flow. Let your executive committee and your executive management team also be reflective of those diversity goals. And, if it's half women, half men, that's great. If it's more diversity in terms of ethnicity and people of color, that's great too. But it has to start at the top. So that would be sort of my second suggestion. And I guess the third would be, why not try a bottoms-up approach too? So start measuring your workforce, take a look at what is the demographic makeup, where do we have more women and people of color, and versus not in terms of level of organization, and how can we make some concerted efforts to increase those numbers? So maybe you have, we put that as part of our goals for our senior managers, that, part of that D&I action plan is to increase, if you have a job that turns over, let's commit to a diversified slate of candidates. At least then we're in a better starting point than if we don't have that commitment. So I think it's a combination of external from the top and from the bottom. And that way you've got it surrounded on all sides.
Excellent.
I do want to talk a little bit about what you said in terms of your leadership team at VOYA. I really want to spotlight a couple things because most companies aspire to this but haven't reached it. And I think VOYA can really be a role model in the industry overall. So your board of directors, 50% women. Executive committee, which is the highest internal management body, there are 8 people and 38% are women. 13% racially ethnically diverse. Your overall workforce, it looks like, is 6,000. 50% are women. People managers, there are approximately 1,000, 38% are women. Those are phenomenal statistics and ones that companies aspire to. It goes back to all the things that you've shared, and I'm hoping that those listening will take advantage of your great advice. And so we're going to close out with one last question for you, Dena, in terms of who inspired you in your career, and you've achieved some incredible success. Who was the person or persons who really provided that inspiration to you?
My answer is probably not unique, but I'm going to attribute it to my parents. I think they have instilled in me work ethic and, confidence and kindness. And that sort of trifecta of characteristics can bring anybody the distance. Just working hard, speaking up and being counted and being kind. And so, like I said, parents are oftentimes, have that are attributable for those successes. But I think it's a combination of the two, not just one or the other. And so I think when I look back over my career and I look ahead as to what's to come, I think those 3 attributes, which is sort of a combination from the two of them, have served me very well.
And I know that you're passing it on. And I know that a lot of the success that VOYA has achieved, it doesn't get by us that you're in the role that you're in. And a lot of that great success is because of the work you do. And so we thank you so much for being part of this podcast and look forward to seeing you soon. Can't wait to see what you're going to be doing in the future. I expect you to be a CEO somewhere, somehow, and very soon.
Well, thank you for your vote of confidence. And it was a pleasure spending time with you ladies this morning.
Thank you, Dena.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. You can find more information and connect with Christine or Tony at www.tffei.org. or on LinkedIn at the Foundation for Female Equity and Inclusion.